What is a CBDC? Well, a CBDC is basically a central bank digital currency. It will be the digitization of currencies. The Chinese are digitizing their own currency. Japan is digitizing its currency. The digital yen, and the U.S. will digitize their currency as well. The digital dollar, so the digital yuan. Europe's digitizing their country's currencies. So all these central banks are going to digitize their currency. If we look here at the Bank of England, it shows about how they will digitize their currency and how it will be directly from their central banks. So issued by the Bank of England, banknotes, digital money. Now, they say it will not replace actual currency like banknotes. That'll just be another form of money, and probably will. I don't know if they'll phase out banknotes completely, but they want to incorporate it in how money is transacted. Money and payments are changing. We're interested in a CBDC because this is a period of significant change in money and payments. So, this goes back into what a CBDC is. It's distributed ledger technology. We live in a digital world and our money is mostly digital to begin with. We use apps on our smartphones to glimpse our balances. We use credit cards to make payments. So how is a CBDC different? CBDCs are digital, but with different technological makeups. These are generally proposed to re-engineer money from the ground up, with many borrowing from Bitcoin's underlying technology with DLT, so distributed ledger technology. So basically, it's just going to be use blockchain technology to digitize the currency. In order to keep track of money, banks need to store financial records such as how much money a person has and what transactions they made in a ledger. Instead of one central database to storing all financial records of people, DLT is composed of several copies of this transaction history, each stored and managed by a separate financial entity, and usually managed from the top country's central bank. These financial entities share DLT together in a distributed manner. So basically, all these banks will be their own entities, and they will all know exactly how much you have on hand at once. The more likely so will be financial technology companies, and financial technology companies are short for, or long term for fintech. And what fintech companies are usually like PayPal, Chime, what other banks have these virtual wallets? Cash App. Those are examples of fintech. I think Robinhood would be considered a financial technology company. So these companies are going to be the future, or going to be the leaders in revolutionizing this technology. Coinbase will be considered, I guess, financial technology company as well. So how are CBDCs different from cryptocurrencies? Bitcoin and other blockchains like Ethereum are unique, that no central entity or group of entities are in charge. That's typically not a property that sits well with government. So governments like control, whether we like it or not, whatever your conspiracy theory is. Governments want to control, and it's not always for nefarious purposes like everybody thinks. Everybody thinks, oh, the government's out to get me, man. The government's not really out to get you. The government is to keep control. The government is to keep control of things. You don't want people just doing whatever the hell they want to do. That's chaotic. And we need some form of control. There's always got to be some rules somewhere. I mean, if you don't like following rules, rules are here for a reason. And people's like, oh man, the government, man, we got to hide under our bunkers and store up some food. Or whatever, people. You got to have rules, man. And I know that doesn't sit well with people. People think, they're not really accustomed to change. They're scared of change. But this change is happening. And we need to really understand what this change is. So who runs it? A central entity will choose which financial entities participate in managing distributed ledger. This differs from Bitcoin, which allows anyone to run the software without permission. So Bitcoin lets anybody run the software without permission. A central entity, you will not be allowed to run it, and you will not be allowed to see what's going on. But here's the thing. So the central authority will allow these fintech companies to be able to control it or have access to it because they'll have special privileges as a bank. So, it's the same thing with banks now. Banks lend money. The Federal Reserve allows them to lend money at fractional reserve. Like they only have to have a certain amount of reserves to lend a certain amount of money. They are basically the creators of money in our economy. So it's going to be the same principle. Fintechs will run the world, or not run the world, but they'll be part of the money suppliers. So why is this better for us? Well, lower costs and higher efficiency. So basically, now there's friction within the banking system. So like, for example, the SWIFT payment system, it's frictional, like it takes a long time. You got to move within banks. Some banks might not have the same software, so they got to verify each transaction, blah, blah, blah. So it moves slow and it's costly. With digital currencies, with digital dollars, with the digitization of currencies, it moves instantly. So it'll take an instant to get where it needs to go. So there's no waiting like 2 days to get your deposit or whatever. You know how it is. Direct deposits take 2 days or whatever. So it'll be in your account. Boom, like that. You know what I'm saying? So there's less friction, which is good. You don't want friction. Friction runs up costs. Friction takes time. I want my money now. So you'll be able to transfer somebody $1 in London within seconds. It's not going to take, right now, what does it take? Like days and days and days. What does it take? You got to do international transfers and all this weird stuff. So it takes a while and it's not efficient. So advocates claim that because the way CBDCs are structured on the hood, that they could lead to lower costs for transfer money. The idea is that with a CBDC, financial entities are more connected, making a smoother way to move money around than a disjointed financial system that's in place today. So basically what I said. So there's a lot of friction. We need to ease up that friction and make it faster and make it cheaper. That way money will be more fluid or liquid. Tracking payments. Oh, this is a big one. Now, before everybody freaks out about tracking payments, DLTs gives a full record of all transactions. Some governments, such as China, which is known for its extensive surveillance apparatus, will potentially want to use this financial information to keep tighter tabs on the citizens. Different governments are leaning towards different policies in this respect. For example, the U.S. Federal Reserve seems much more eager to preserve the privacy of U.S. citizens in case it adapts to CBDC. Now, I'm not going to speak on that one. I have no idea. But if we want to track the payments, this will be good for a couple of reasons. It'll fight corruption and money laundering. And this is one key thing. The United States gives a lot of countries money. A lot of countries money. It loans it out. But it has no way of knowing where that money is actually going. Is it going to the causes that it wants to promote? The people in those countries, it invests a lot of money. Or is it going to corrupt officials and politicians? We don't want money going to corrupt politicians and officials. And so it will give us better track of what we need to do. So it wants to preserve privacy. I get that. So along with money laundering as well, we want to we don't want people money laundering as well. So that's another thing. So why have so many countries been exploring CBDCs recently? Bitcoin has grown rapidly since it launched in 2009, inspiring a slew of offspring currencies and financial products using similar underlying technology. But it wasn't until 2019 when Libra, the Facebook-backed digital currency project based on blockchain technology, was unveiled that governments around the world began to more seriously explore whether they should be adapting similar technology. They begin to wonder if a currency created by a company as widespread and powerful as Facebook could challenge government control of money. In response, governments accelerated the exploration whether they could incorporate similar technologies into their national payment systems. Will CBDCs replace the money we use today? Most countries see a CBDC as a supplementary form of money, not necessarily a currency that will replace the existing infrastructure. So it'll be supplementary. It won't be fully CBDC. You'll still have banknotes. You'll still have, your regular money, and then you'll have CBDCs. How many countries are experimenting with CBDCs? No one knows exactly. A survey released in January 2020, the Bank of International Settlements, BIS, the International Signal Bank Coordinator, asked 66 central banks whether they are working on a CBDC. 80% of the central banks said they are exploring the idea, while 10% are imminently close to launching a CBDC for the general public. Will all CBDCs use blockchain? Now, while many banks see blockchain as benefits such as efficiency gains, several central banks have expressed skepticism, arguing blockchain inspired CBDC does not bring enough benefits to justify creating and maintaining one. So like I said, governments want control. They're not going to let you do whatever you want to do. I'm sorry to tell you, but that's how every government is in the world. You ain't escaping it. These motherfuckers are going to get, they want control and they want their power. And whether that's good or not, that depends on your own perception of governments. Some people don't trust governments. Rightfully so. History shows that governments, create oppression all over the world. No government is an exception to this rule. But generally, I feel like the United States has a good system where it separates power to basically corruption is hard to exist. People say, oh, there's a deep state or whatever the hell they say. But really, I believe that, United States has the bureaucracies in it are so, there's no one central authority that controls it all. Like the executive branch has its own power, the judicial branch has its own power, and the legislative branch has its own power. Legislative, judicial, executive. So it's split between three. No one central authority can control each other. The executive branch can't control the legislative. The legislative can't control the executive. The executive can't control the judicial. And legislative can't control the judicial. So I think government, the United States is a force of good. Now you may disagree with me, blah blah blah, whatever. You know, that's fine. But I think this information is important, and I'll leave it there. And talking about the central bank digital currency.